The incense smoke had ba rely curled twice before I heard the crash of the front gates being thrown open, and I knew with a sickening certainty that I had woken up too late. I had been dead. I had felt the poison burn its way down my throat, watched my husband's face hover above me like a carving of jade, cold and untroubled. I had seen Chuanhua's head roll across the marble, her eyes still blinking in confusion. I had heard my mother's scream cut short by my father's order. I had tasted the black nothing of the grave. And then I had opened my eyes to the scent of incense and the sound of rain, my heart pounding with the memory of dying. But now the gates were crashing open, and I was still in my bedchamber, still wearing the thin sleeping robe I had woken in, still surrounded by the silk and lacquer of a life I had already lost once. Young mistress. Chuanhua burst through the door, her face ashen, her hands shaking. The master's men in the courtier road. They urging the compound. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet hitting the cold floor. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I had died in this body, and yet my hands did not tremble. Urging for what, I asked, though I already knew. In my previous life, the CRCH had come 2 days later, after we had left the capital. They had been looking for the gold, the documents, the evidence of my husband's treason. They had found it all. The servants qua routers, Chuanhua gasped. They turned over every trunk. They are re-asking about Lady Xiang. Lady Xiang. The condemned daughter of a disgraced minister. The girl who had not been in my previous life. The girl who had read in my husband's riage the night before our departure, her hands bound, her eyes hollow with fear. Where is Lady Xiang now? I asked, already reaching for the plain cotton robe I had laid out the night before. I had known, somehow, that I would need to move fast. Even before I understood why. She is in the Eastern Pavilion, Chuanhua said. The master ordered her confined there this morning. He said she was not to be disturbed. I pulled the robe over my shoulders and tied it with swift, efficient movements. My hair was loose, uncombed, but there was no time for vanity. The shouts from the courtier were growing louder, more urgent. Chuanhua, listen to me. I gripped her shoulders and looked into her eyes. I had watched those eyes go glassy and still, her head separated from her body by a single stroke of a guard's blade. Not again. I would not watch it again. You need to go to the kitchens. Find 6 uncle and old Zhang. Tell them to gather the supplies we spoke of, the rice, the dried meat, the medicinal herbs. Tell them to bring everything to the Western Temple. Do you understand? She read at me, her brow furrowed. Young mistress, I do not. Do you understand? I repeated, my voice sharper than I had ever used with her before. She nodded, frightened. Yes, young mistress. Go. Now. Do not stop for anything. Do not speak to anyone. If the master's men ask where you are going, tell them you are fetching tea for my headache. Move quickly and do not run. She fled, and I turned to face the door. The shouting was closer now. I could hear the heavy boots of our men on the stone walkway outside my chamber, the clink of metal on metal, the raised voices of my husband's retainers demanding entry. I had not planned for this. In my previous life, the CRCH had come later, after we were already on the road. My husband had been clever, waiting until we were far from the capital and its protections before springing his trap. But something had changed. Lady Xiang had changed it. Or perhaps my own behavior had, my refusal to weep, my sudden compliance, my request to move my belongings to the servants qua routers. Zhou Yan was suspicious. And a suspicious man is a dangerous man. The door slammed open, and I found myself face to face with Captain Wei, the leader of my husband's personal guard. He was a broad-shouldered brute with a SCAR across his nose and a permanent sneer on his lips. In my previous life, he had been the one to cut Chuanhua down. Lin Wei, he said, and he did not bother with the honorific. The master wants you in the main hall. Now. My husband knows better than to send his dog to fetch me, I said, my voice calm and ciel. I did not know where the words came from. In my previous life, I would have cowered, would have pleaded, would have done anything to avoid the sharp edge of his temper. But the memory of dying had stripped away all my fear of living. If he wishes to speak with me, he can come to my chamber himself. Captain Wei's eyes narrowed. He was not used to being spoken to this way, especially not by a woman. I could see the violence flickering behind his gaze, the desire to strike me down where I stood. You will come with me, he said, or I will drag you by the hair. I would like to see you try, I said, and I reached into the sleeve of my robe and pulled out the small dagger I had hidden there. The blade was not long, the length of my palm, but it was sharp. I had spent the night honing it against the stone of my windowsill, preparing for this moment without consciously knowing why. In my husband's household, there is a rule about touching the mistress's person without her consent. The punishment is death. You prepared to die for your master's convenience. He hesitated. I saw it, the brief flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He had been told that I was weak, docile, a woman who would bend to any pressure. He had not been told about the woman who had already died once and had nothing left to fear. Tell my husband I will meet him in the main hall when I am dressed, I said. Not before. Captain Wei opened his mouth to argue, and then he heard the sound of footsteps behind him, measured, deliberate, the footsteps of a man who expected obedience. Zhou Yan stepped into the doorway, his handsome face shadowed with contained fury. Wife, he said, and the word was a whip crack. What is the meaning of this? I held his gaze, and I did not flinch. In my previous life, I had loved this man with all my heart. I had believed that his coldness was a mask, that beneath it there was warmth and tenderness waiting to be unlocked. I had been a fool. I could ask you the same question, I said. You have armed men sea urching my compound, disturbing my servants, and you send your captain to drag me from my chamber like a common criminal. What is the meaning of this, husband? He stepped closer, and I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. He was not used to being challenged, especially not by me. Where is Lady Xiang? He demanded. Lady Xiang is in the Eastern Pavilion, I said, as you ordered. You can find her there this morning. Perhaps you have forgotten. I have forgotten nothing, he snapped. I am asking you where she is now. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean, where she is now? His eyes flickered with something that might have been triumph. She is gone. Her chamber is empty. And the last person seen the Eastern Pavilion this morning was your maid, Chunhua. The world tilted around me. Chunhua had been in the Eastern Pavilion. She had told me she was going to the kitchens. She had lied to me. But then I remembered the fear in her eyes, the way she had looked at me when I told her to go. She had been afraid of something more than just the master's men. She had known about Lady Xiang. No. That was not possible. Chunhua had been with me since I was 7 years old. She had died for me. She would never betray me. Unless she had been given no choice. Chunhua, I said slowly, is a loyal servant. If she was the Eastern Pavilion, it was because she was carrying out my orders. What are you accusing her of? I am accusing her of assisting a prisoner to escape, Zhou Yan said, and his voice was flat, emotionless. Lady Xiang was being held for transport to the borderlands. Her escape is a crime. The punishment for assisting a fugitive is death. He was not threatening me. He was telling me what was already happening. I looked past him, through the doorway, and I saw 2 of his guards dragging Chunhua across the Courtier Road. Her face was streaked with TRS, her robes torn, her wrists bound with COARSE rope. I pushed past Zhou Yan, shouldering him aside, and ran into the Courtier Road. The morning sun was harsh, blinding, and the stones were cold beneath my feet. But I did not see Ari. I ran toward Chunhua, toward the guards who were holding her, toward the inevitable moment when my husband would order her killed. Release her. I shouted, my voice rang across the Courtier Road, release her now. The guards hesitated. They looked at Zhou Yan, who had followed me out of my chamber, his face a mask of cold fury. Lin Wei, he said, you are making a scene. I am making a point, I said, and I reached out to grab Chunhua's bound wrists. This girl has been with me since I was a child. She is innocent of whatever you are accusing her of. I will not let you harm her. Zhou Yan walked toward me, slowly, deliberately. I could feel the weight of his presence, the aura of authority he had cultivated his entire life. But I had walked Tower RD death before, and I had not flinched. Everything you have done in the past 2 days, he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear, has been calculated to defy me. You moved your belongings. You refused to weep. You asked for the servants' routers. And now you stand in my courtier RD in your sleeping robe, shouting at my gua RDS, and you expect me to believe that you had nothing to do with Lady Xiang's escape. I know nothing of Lady Xiang's escape, I said. But I know that Chunhua is innocent. If you punish her, you will be punishing an innocent woman, and the gods will hold you accountable. Zhou Yan laughed. It was a cold sound, empty of humor. The gods have never held me accountable for anything, wife. And they will not start today. He turned to Captain Wei. Take her to the cell beneath the Eastern Pavilion. She will be held there until we determine her guilt. No. I stepped in front of Chunhua, spreading my arms wide. You will not take her anywhere. She is my servant, my responsibility, and I will not let you hurt her. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the assessment of the situation. He knew that if he took Chunhua by force, he would have to physically move me out of the way. And in doing so, he would make a spectacle that would be remembered long after we left the capital. You are re-protecting her, he said slowly, which means you are either complicit in her crime, or you are hiding something. Which is it, wife? I opened my mouth to answer, and then I heard a voice from the gate, a young voice, trembling but determined. She is not hiding anything. I escaped on my own. She knew nothing of it. We all turned. A young woman stood in the gateway, her delicate features pale, her travel-stained robes hanging loose on her thin frame. Lady Xiang. She had not escaped. She had been waiting. Waiting to see what I would do, how I would react, whether I was a friend or a foe. And by protecting Chunhua, I had proven myself. Lady Xiang, Zhou Yan said, and his voice was ice. You are under arrest. AMI. Lady Xiang stepped into the courtier RD, and despite her trembling hands, her eyes were clear and sharp, according to whose authority. The Minister of Revenue has been executed. His family has been stripped of their titles. There is no one left to arrest me. I am the one who found you, Zhou Yan said. I am the one who offered you protection. You owe me your life. I owe you nothing, Lady Xiang said. You offered me protection because you wanted the gold I was carrying. The gold my father entrusted to me before he died. You thought you could take it and dispose of me in the mountains. But I escaped, and I have witnesses who will testify to your crimes. Zhou Yan's face went white. I saw the panic flicker in his eyes, the sudden calculation of a man who has been exposed. Lady Xiang had the gold. She had the evidence. And she had just made it clear that she would use it. You are lying, he said. AMI. Lady Xiang reached into her sleeve and pulled out a bundle of papers. They were official documents, stamped with the seal of the Minister of Revenue. These are records of your dealings with my father. They detail every bribe, every conspiracy, every betrayal. I copied them before I left. If you harm anyone in this courtier RD, I will have them delivered to the Imperial Censor by noon. Zhou Yan read at her, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. He could kill her. He could kill all of us. But he could not control the documents. He did not know where they were or who else might have copies. He was trapped. I am leaving, Lady Xiang said, and her voice was steady now, confident. I am taking these women with me. If you try to stop us, I will destroy you. Zhou Yan looked at me, and I saw something I had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Not of me, not of Lady Xiang, but of the ruin that was closing in around him. This is not over, he said. It is over, I said. You just do not know it yet. I took Chunhua's bound wrists and began to untie them. Lady Xiang walked Tower RD me, her steps even and unhurried. And together, the three of us walked out of the courtier RD, through the gate, and into the street beyond. I did not look back. I had already seen that future, and I wanted no part of it. As we rounded the corner, I felt Chunhua's hand slip into mine. She was shaking, her breath coming in shallow gasps. I did not know, she whispered. I did not know about the documents. I just wanted to help her. She said she was afraid, and I believed her. You did the right thing, I said. You saved her life. But what about us? Chunhua asked. What will we do now? I looked at Lady Xiang, who was walking beside us with the determined stride of someone who had just gambled everything and won. We will do what we planned, I said. We will go south. We will build a new life. And we will never let anyone control us again. It was a promise. It was a hope. And as we walked through the streets of the capital, leaving the wreckage of my old life behind, I knew that I would keep it. I had died once. I had been given a second chance. And I would not waste it. The shouts from the courtier RD faded behind us. The sun rose higher, warming my shoulders. And I walked toward an unknown future with nothing but the clothes on my back and the people who had chosen to follow me. I had been a fool once. I had been a victim once. I had been dead once. I would be none of those things again. The hot boar stank of fish and desperation, and I had never been more grateful for a stench in my life. The salt wind cut through my thin traveling cloak, and the cries of gulls drowned out the distant echo of hoofbeats that had haunted every step of our flight from the capital. We had run for 3 days. 3 days of back roads and hidden trails, of sleeping in ditches and eating dry bread that crumbled to dust between my fingers. 3 days of looking over my shoulder and seeing nothing but the ghosts of my own fear. But now we were at the docks, and the ship that would carry us south was waiting. I could see its masts rising above the Wari House roofs, its hull rocking gently against the wooden piers. It was a merchant vessel, unreme cable and ordina re, exactly what we needed. We are almost there, I said, my voice hoa rse from days of whispered commands. Just a little further. Lady Xiang walked beside me, her hands tucked into her sleeves, her eyes scanning the crowd with the practiced wariness of a hunted animal. She had not spoken much during our flight, and I had not pressed her. We shall read a bond forged in the crucible of Zhou Yan's cruelty, but that did not mean we trusted each other. Trust took time. Trust took proof. Chunhua followed close behind, her small frame burdened with a pack that held everything we had managed to salvage. She had not complained once, not even when her feet had blistered and her back had ached. She had simply kept walking, kept following, kept believing in me. I did not deserve her loyalty. But I would spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. The ship loomed ahead of us, its wooden hull streaked with salt and nacles. A grizzled old sailor stood at the gangplank, his eyes narrowing as he took in our ragged group, 3 women, no escorts, no luggage, but the packs on our backs. I had paid him half the gold in advance, and I had promised the other half on arrival. He had not asked questions then. I hoped he would not ask them now. 3 passengers, I said, approaching him with the coins already in my hand. As agreed. The sailor looked at Lady Xiang, then at Chunhua, and finally at me. His eyes lingered on the faded embroidery of my kala, the last remaining trace of the silk I had worn in my former life. He was not a stupid man. He knew we were running from something. The tide turns in 2 hours, he said, pocketing the gold. If you are not on Boa RD by then, you will be left behind. We will be on Boa RD, I said. I have no intention of staying in this city a moment longer than necessary. I stepped onto the gangplank, and the wood groaned beneath my weight. Chunhua followed, then Lady Xiang. The sailor's eyes followed us, but he said nothing. He had his gold. He had his instructions. Everything else was none of his business. The ship was smaller than I had expected, its deck cluttered with coils of rope and barrels of salted fish. The crew looked at us with the indifferent curiosity of men who had seen too many desperate souls to be surprised by another. I led my companions to a small cabin near the stern, a cramped space with 2 narrow bunks and a single porthole. This will be our home for the next few weeks, I said, closing the door behind us. It is not much, but it is safe. Lady Xiang sank onto one of the bunks, her pale face drawn with exhaustion. For the first time since we had fled the capital, she let her composure crack. Her shoulders slumped, and her hands trembled in her lap. Thank you, she said, her voice rely above a whisper, for not leaving me behind. I sat down across from her, the distance between us filled with the unspoken weight of everything we had endured. I did not save you out of charity, I said. I saved you because your survival is tied to mine. Zhou Yan will not rest until he has reclaimed what he believes is his. And that includes me as much as it includes the gold you are carrying. Lady Xiang's eyes narrowed. You know about the gold. I know that Zhou Yan does not do anything without a reason, I said. He did not offer you protection out of kindness. He wanted something. And the fact that you escaped with it means you are a threat to him. She was silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her sleeve. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a small leather pouch, worn smooth with age. She held it out to me, and I took it, feeling the weight of the coins inside. My father gave me this before he died, she said. He told me to use it to buy my freedom. But I did not know where to go or who to trust. I thought Zhou Yan was a friend. I thought he would help me. I opened the pouch and looked inside. The gold was not just gold, it was mixed with jade, precious stones, and small rolled scrolls that I recognized as official documents. The evidence of Zhou Yan's crimes. The proof that could destroy him. Keep this, I said, handing the pouch back to her. Do not let it out of your sight. And do not tell anyone else about it, not even my servants. Trust is rened, and we have not yet rened each other's. Lady Xiang nodded, tucking the pouch back into her robe. She looked at me with something like respect, and I felt a small measure of satisfaction. I was building something here, something fragile and tentative, but real. A network of trust. A family of survivors. The ship sailed with the tide, and I stood on the deck watching the city shrink into the distance. Chunhua stood beside me, her hand brushing my sleeve. You are sad, she said. I am relieved, I said. There is a difference. She did not press further, and I was grateful. The truth was too complicated to explain. I was relieved to be leaving, relieved to be alive, but I was also mourning the life I had lost, the woman I had been before Zhou Yan had destroyed me. That woman was dead, and I did not miss her. But I still felt the weight of her absence, the strange emptiness of a future that had been stolen and replaced with something uncertain. Young mistress, Lady Xiang said, approaching me with a hesitant step. I need to speak with you. Privately. I excused myself from Chunhua and followed Lady Xiang to the stern of the ship, where the wind was louder and the noise of the crew was muffled. What is it? I asked. I did not tell you everything, she said, and her voice was tight with fear. About my father. About the documents. There is more. Something I should have told you before we left. My heart quickened. Tell me now. She took a deep breath, and I saw the TRS forming in her eyes. My father was not just the Minister of Revenue. He was also the keeper of the Imperial Seal. The real one, the one that belongs to the Emperor. Before he died, he gave it to me. He told me to keep it safe, to use it as leverage if I ever needed protection. I read at her, my mind racing. The Imperial Seal. The ultimate symbol of authority in the Empire. If Zhou Yan knew about it, he would not just want to recapture Lady Xiang, he would TR the world APART to find her. And if the current emperor discovered that his seal had been stolen, he would not rest until it was recovered. Where is it? I asked. My voice a whisper. Lady Xiang looked at me, and I saw the fear in her eyes. The desperate calculation of a woman who had already lost everything and was terrified of losing what little she had left. I hid it, she said, before I escaped. In a place that only I know about. But I cannot retrieve it alone. I need your help. The wind howled around us, and I felt the weight of her words settling on my shoulders like lead. I had been running from Zhou Yan, from the past, from everything that had destroyed me. But now I was being pulled back into the web of intrigue I had so desperately wanted to escape. Why did you not tell me this before we left the capital? I asked. Because I did not trust you, she said, and there was no apology in her voice. I still do not fully trust you. But I have no one else. And if Zhou Yan finds that seal before I can retrieve it, he will use it to destroy everything. I closed my eyes and let the wind wash over me. I had thought I was free. I had thought I had escaped the machinations of power and greed that had consumed my former life. But there was no escape, not really. There was only the slow, relentless pursuit of survival. Or where is it? I asked again. Lady Xiang reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small piece of paper, folded into a neat square. She handed it to me, and I opened it to find a rough map, drawn in faded ink. It depicted a temple I did not recognize, perched on the edge of a mountain pass. The Temple of the Golden Bell, she said. NEA are the northern border. The same mountain pass where Zhou Yan planned to have us killed. I felt the blood drain from my face. The mountain pass. The place where I had died in my previous life. The Na-Ro Gorge where Chunhua had lost her head, where I had choked on poison, where every dream I had ever had been ground to dust. You want to go back? I said, and my voice was cold. You want to go back to the place where we were almost slaughtered? I want to retrieve what is mine, Lady Xiang said, and her voice was fierce, unyielding. That seal is the only thing that can protect me now. Without it, I am nothing. A condemned woman with no family, no title, no future. With it, I have power. I can negotiate, I can bargain, I can survive. I looked at the map. At the familiar are lines of the mountain pass etched into the paper. In my previous life, I had died in that gorge. I had felt the stone against my back, the sharp pain of the blade, the darkness closing in around me. I had sworn I would never go back. But Lady Xiang was right. The seal was her only protection. And if Wo Yen got his hands on it, he would be unstoppable. I have a condition, I said. If I agree to help you retrieve the seal, you must promise me something in return. Lady Xiang looked at me wryly. What if we find the seal? You will use it to destroy Zhou Yan. Not just to protect yourself, but to bring him down. I want him exposed, humiliated, stripped of everything he values. I want him to know what it feels like to lose everything. She read at me, and I saw the understanding dawning in her eyes. She had thought I was just a frightened wife, fleeing a cruel husband. But she was beginning to realize that I was something more. Something harder. Something that had been forged in the fires of betrayal and had come out stronger. I agree, she said. On my father's grave, I swear it. I folded the map and tucked it into my sleeve. The ship creaked beneath us, and the sea stretched out in every direction, vast and ring. We will need to change our plans, I said. We cannot sail south. We will need to go north, to the borderlands, before Zhou Yan realizes where we are going. Lady Xiang nodded. I will tell the captain to change course. No, I said. We cannot tell him. We cannot tell anyone. We are 3 women traveling alone, and the crew is loyal only to gold. If they know what we are looking for, they will try to take it from us. We will have to disembark at the next port and find another way north. It was a risk. A dangerous, reckless risk. But there was no other choice. I had been running from my past, and it had caught up with me. The only way 4-way RD was through. The captain was not pleased when I informed him that we would be leaving at the next port. He grumbled about lost FA residential and broken promises, but I paid him the remaining gold, and he said no more. I watched him count the coins, his eyes gleaming with greed, and I wondered if I had just made a terrible mistake. But there was no time for second thoughts. Chunhua and Lady Xiang gathered our belongings, and we stepped off the ship onto the wooden pier of a fishing village I had never heard of. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. The wind was cold, and I pulled my cloak tighter around my shoulders. Where are we? Chunhua asked, looking around at the unfamiliar landscape. Somewhere between the coast and the mountains, I said. We will need to find horses and supplies before we can continue north. Lady Xiang pointed to a cluster of buildings in the distance. There is a town there. We can rest and plan our next move. We walked through the twilight, our footsteps silent on the dusty road. The town was small, little more than a collection of huts and a single inn. The innkeeper was a fat man with a sly smile and greedy eyes. He looked at us like a wolf looks at a flock of sheep. 3 women, traveling alone, he said, licking his lips. Dangerous business, that. You should be CA Refill. We are CA Refill, I said, sliding a silver coin across the counter. We need a room for the night and information about the road to the northern border. The innkeeper's eyes lit up at the sight of the silver. The northern border is a hard road, he said. Bandits, wild beasts, and worse. But I can arrange safe passage for a price. Safe passage? Lady Xiang asked, her voice with suspicion. The innkeeper smiled. I know a guide. A man who knows the mountain passes better than anyone. He can take you where you need to go for a reasonable fee. I looked at Lady Xiang, and I saw the same wariness reflected in her eyes. We had trusted too easily before, and we had paid for it. But we had no other options. The mountain pass was waiting, and Zhou Yan was probably already sea urching for us. Bring us this guide, I said. We will speak with him. The innkeeper nodded and Desape read into the back of the inn. Chunhua tugged at my sleeve, her face pale. Young mistress, I do not trust this place, she whispered. There is something wrong here. She was right. I had felt it too, the subtle wrongness of a town that was too quiet, too empty. The innkeeper had been too eager, his smile too wide. I had made a mistake by stopping here. But it was too late to leave. The sun had set, and the darkness was absolute. We were trapped. I heard the creak of footsteps on the stairs, heavy and deliberate. I turned, my hand reaching for the dagger in my boot, and I saw the innkeeper's guide emerge from the shadows. It was Captain Lin Wei, he said, his SCA red face twisting into a grin. The master has been looking for you. The world rode to the point of his sword, gleaming in the lamplight. I had been so full. I had been so close to freedom. And now, in the space of a single heartbeat, everything had collapsed around me. I heard Chunhua scream. He heard Lady Xiang Sha RP intake of breath. The innkeeper had stepped back, his greed giving way to fear. He had not known who he was dealing with. But Captain Wei knew, and he was not here to be a gain. I had died once before, and I had sworn I would not die again. But the blade was coming toward me, and there was nowhere to run. I had been a fool. I had been a victim. I had been dead once. And now, it seemed, I was about to be dead again. Captain Wei's sword came down, and I threw myself sideways, my shoulder slamming into a rough-hewn table. The blade bit into the wood where I had been standing, splintering the planks. I rolled, my hand scrabbling for the dagger in my boot. I had no time to think. No time to plan. Just the screaming in my ears, and the crash of my heart against my ribs. I would not do that if I were you. The voice came from behind me, cold and amused. I turned, and there he was, seated at the FAR corner of the inn's common room, a cup of wine in his hand and a smile on his face that did not reach his eyes. Lower your weapons, all of you. Or I will have you gutted where you stand. I had not seen him when we entered. He must have been sitting in the shadows, watching, waiting. Now he rose from his seat, and I saw that he was tall, lean, his hair streaked with gray, his face lined with the weariness of a man who had seen too much. He wore the simple robes of a traveling merchant, but his hands were calloused and SCA red, the hands of a man who had held a sword more often than a ledger book. Who are you? I demanded, my dagger still in my hand. Chunhua was pressed against the wall, her face white with terror. Lady Xiang stood behind me, her fingers gripping the edge of her sleeve. Someone who has been following you for 3 days, he said. Someone who knows exactly what you are re-CA-rying and exactly who is hunting you. And someone who is very, very tired of watching you stumble into traps like a blind kitten. Captain Wei Sna led and lunged at the man, his sword flashing in the lamplight. The man did not even flinch. He sidestepped with the fluid grace of a dancer, brought his elbow down on Captain Wei's wrist, and met him in a single motion. The sword clattered to the floor, and the man planted his foot on Captain Wei's chest, pinning him to the ground. Pathetic, the man said, shaking his head. Zhou Yan's best soldier, and you cannot even hold your own against an old man with a bad knee. Captain Wei struggled, his face red with fury, but he could not break free. The man's weight was too heavy, his leverage too perfect. You are a dead man, Captain Wei spat. The master will have your head on a pike. The master can try, the man said. But I have been killing men like your master since before you were old enough to grow a BA road. He looked at me, and his eyes were Sha RP, assessing. You. The one with the dagger. What is your name? Lin Wei, I said, and I did not lower my weapon. Lin Wei. Wife of Zhou Yan. Daughter of the Lin family of the eastern provinces. And, if my information is correct, the woman who cheated death at a mountain pass 3 days ago. He smiled, and there was something almost admiring in it. I have been watching you for a long time, Lin Wei. Longer than you know. I knew your mother, before she married into the Lin family. And I knew your grandmother, who taught you how to ride before you could walk. I have been waiting for the day when you would finally decide to fight back. I read at him, my mind reeling. He knew my mother, he knew my grandmother, but my grandmother had died when I was 6, and my mother had never spoken of any old friends or allies. The man's presence had to be a lie, a trick, another layer of Zhou Yan's web. You expect me to believe that you are some long-lost ally who just happened to be waiting in this obscure village at the exact moment we stumbled into a trap. My voice was steady, though my hand was trembling. I am not a fool. No, the man said, and his tone softened, just slightly. You are not a fool. But you are naive. You thought you could run from Zhou Yan, disappear into the countryside, live a quiet life on a farm by the sea. You were wrong. He has spies everywhere, and he will never stop hunting you until he has what he wants. Not because he's residential about you, but because you are a loose end, and loose ends have a way of unraveling entire conspiracies. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small pendant, a jade carving of a phoenix that I recognized immediately. My grandmother had worn it around her neck every day of her life. She had been wearing it when she died. I had watched them bury her with it around her neck. Or where did you get that? I demanded, my voice cracking. Your grandmother gave it to me, he said. Before she died. She told me that if I ever saw you in danger, I was to find you and give you this. She said it was the only thing she had left that could prove I was not a threat. I walked toward him, my heart pounding. He held out the pendant, and I took it. The jade was in my hand, worn smooth by decades of touch. I had not seen it since I was 6 years old, but I knew it as well as I knew my own face. Who are you? I whispered. I am Wei Guang, he said. Your grandmother's sworn brother. And I have been watching over you since the day you were born. I read at him, and the weight of his words crashed over me like a wave. My grandmother's sworn brother. A man who had been a part of my family's history long before I had ever existed. A man who had been waiting, watching, hoping. Captain Wei thrashed beneath his foot, trying to free himself. Wei Guang did not even look down. He simply pressed rider, and Captain Wei gasped in pain. There are 12 more men outside, Wei Guang said, his voice businesslike. Zhou Yan's men, waiting for the signal. They will be expecting Captain Wei to drag you out of here in chains. But they will not be expecting me. Then we need to leave, I said. We cannot fight 12 men. We do not fight them, Wei Guang said. We fight the one who matters, and the rest will scatter like roaches when you turn on the light. Zhou Yan is not here. He is waiting in the mountain pass, expecting to meet his captain with the prize. But he has been waiting for 3 days now, and he is growing impatient. We need to reach him before he decides to abandon his plan and come looking for you himself. Why would we go to him? Lady Xiang spoke for the first time, her voice tight with fury. I came here to retrieve the seal, not to deliver myself into the hands of my enemy. The seal is hidden in the same pass where Zhou Yan is waiting, Wei Guang said. And there is no way to reach it without going through him. We either fight our way past him, or we find another way to the border. And I have a feeling that you have been running long enough to know that the direct approach is sometimes the only approach. He was right. I hated it, but he was right. I had been running for days, and it had not brought me any closer to safety. If anything, it had brought me closer to the trap. The only way to escape was to turn and face the trap head-on. How many men do you have? I asked. I am not a general, Wei Guang said. I do not command armies. I work alone. But I have enough skills and enough weapons to give you a fighting chance. I looked at Chunhua. She was trembling, her eyes wide with fear. But she nodded, just slightly, a gesture of trust that broke my heart. I looked at Lady Xiang, and I saw the same desperation in her eyes. Then we go, I said. We go to the mountain pass, we retrieve the seal, and we end this. One way or another. Wei Guang nodded and lifted his foot from Captain Wei's chest. The captain scrambled to his feet, reaching for the sword that had fallen to the floor. But Wei Guang was faster. He scp'd up the weapon and pressed the tip of the blade against Captain Wei's throat. You are going to write a message to Zhou Yan, Wei Guang said. Tell him that you captured us and that you are bringing us to him. You will not mention anything about me, or about the fact that you have lost control of the situation. Do you understand? Captain Wei's face was pale with rage, but he nodded. I watched him write the note with trembling fingers, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. He had been the one to cut Chunhua down in my previous life. He had been the one to lead the slaughter in the mountain pass. And now he was the one groveling at my feet. We left the inn an hour later, our small group bolstered by the unexpected presence of Wei Guang. He had produced 3 sturdy horses from a stable behind the inn, and the cold night air filled my lungs as we rode into the darkness. Captain Wei was bound and gagged, lashed to the back of a 4th horse, a message sent ahead of us that would lure Zhou Yan into a false sense of security. The road to the mountain pass was long and winding, and I spent the hours of darkness replaying the scene in the inn in my mind. Wei Guang's sudden appearance, the pendant, the revelation that my grandmother had been watching over me from beyond the grave. I had never known about her connections, never suspected that she had been anything more than a gentle old woman who liked to tell stories and spoil her grandchildren. But now I understood. She had been preparing me for this moment. She had been teaching me to ride, to think, to survive. She had been building the woman I would become, even when I did not know I was being built. "You are rethinking too much," Wei Guang said, riding beside me. "The mind is a weapon, but it needs rest just like any other." "You are re-asking me to trust you," I said. "But I do not know you. I do not know if you are real or if you are another of Zhou Yan's schemes." "I am real," he said. "And I will prove it to you when we reach the pass. But you need to believe in something, Lin Wei. You need to believe that there is a reason you survived, that there is a future beyond the life you have been forced to live." I looked at him, and I saw the sincerity in his eyes. It was not a trick. It was not a lie. He was telling the truth, as far as he knew it. "Where did you get the pendant?" I asked. "My grandmother was buried with it." "She was buried with a copy," Wei Guang said. "She gave me the original the night before she died. She knew she was dying, and she wanted to make sure that I had something to give you, something that would prove my story. She believed in you, Lin Wei. She always believed in you." The words hit me like a physical blow. My grandmother, the woman who had held me when I cried, who had taught me to read, who had told me that I was destined for great things even when the world seemed determined to prove otherwise. She had believed in me when no one else did. "I will not let her down," I said, and my voice was steady. "I will survive this, and I will rebuild my life." "That is what she would have wanted," Wei Guang said. "Now let us focus on the task at hand. We are reapproaching the pass. Zhou Yan will be waiting. And we need to be ready." The mountain pass loomed in the distance, a narrow gorge seared into the living rock. I remembered it from my previous life, remembered the way the walls had closed in around us, remembered the flash of steel and the sound of screaming. I had died in that gorge, and now I was returning to face the man who had killed me. Zhou Yan was waiting at the far end of the pass, flanked by 6 of his retainers. He wore his finest armor, his face a mask of cold authority. But I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes as we approached. He had been expecting Captain Wei, and instead he was getting me, Lady Xiang, Chunhua, and a stranger he did not recognize. "A wife," he called out, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "You have brought me a gift." "I have brought you nothing," I said, reining in my horse. "But you have brought yourself trouble, husband." Zhou Yan laughed. It was a hollow sound, devoid of mirth. "Trouble? I have a dozen men at my back, and you have 3 women and an old man. I think I can handle the trouble." He was underestimating us. I could see it in the way he looked at Wei Guang, dismissing him as a frail old man. I could see it in the way he looked at Lady Xiang, seeing only the frightened girl he had tried to control. Wei Guang moved first. He was off his horse and across the ground before Zhou Yan's men could react. His sword was in his hand, and he cut down the NEA rest retainer with a single stroke. The man fell, gurgling, and chaos erupted. Chunhua screamed, and I heard the clash of steel behind me. Lady Xiang had dismounted and was fighting, her dagger flashing in the dim light. I did not have time to be surprised. I drew my own blade and joined the fray. Zhou Yan was a skilled swordsman, but he was fighting to control, while Wei Guang was fighting to kill. The difference was evident. Wei Guang pressed forward with relentless intensity, driving Zhou Yan back step by step. I circled around behind them, looking for an opening. Lin Wei, Zhou Yan gasped, his eyes widening as he saw me approaching. You would kill your own husband. I would kill the man who murdered me, I said. And I will not lose any sleep over it. He lunged at me, his blade aimed at my throat. I sidestepped, my body moving with a fluidity I had not known I possessed. The blade sliced through the air where I had been standing, and I brought my own dagger up in a sha rparc, cutting across his wrist. He screamed, and his sword fell from nerveless fingers. Wei Guang stepped in and delivered the final blow, a clean strike that ended the battle in a single instant. Zhou Yan crumpled to the ground, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had been so confident, so sure of his victory. And now he was bleeding out on the stones of the mountain pass, his plans in ruins around him. This is not over, he gasped, his voice wet and rattling. You will never be free. Someone else will come. Someone else will destroy you. Maybe, I said. But it will not be you. I watched him breathe his last, and then I turned away. I did not feel triumph. I did not feel vengeance. I just felt the hollow emptiness of a woman who had finally closed the book on a chapter she had been forced to write. Lady Xiang was sea-urching the bodies, her fingers quick and efficient. She found what she was looking for, a small leather pouch, identical to the one I had given her, hidden in the folds of Zhou Yan's robes. She opened it and withdrew a small jade seal, red with the symbol of the Emperor. The seal, she breathed. It is real. It is safe. Good, I said, and my voice was heavy with exhaustion. Then we are redone. We have what we came for, and Zhou Yan is dead. We can go our separate ways. Chuanhua came to me, her face streaked with TRS. Young mistress, what will we do now? I looked at her, this loyal soul who had followed me through death and back. I looked at Lady Xiang, who had found her own strength in the crucible of adversity. I looked at Wei Guang, who had write a promise for 2 decades and had finally fulfilled it. We will live, I said. We will leave this pass and find a place where we can rest. And then we will build something new. Something of our own. The sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. I had died in this pass, and I had been reborn. I had faced my enemy, and I had won. I had lost everything, and I had found something worth fighting for. I was free at last. And that was more than I had ever dreamed possible. The silence of the pass was the loudest thing I had ever heroed. It pressed against my ears, thick and suffocating, broken only by the ragged sound of my own breathing. Zhou Yan's body lay crumpled on the stones, his blood seeping into the cracks between the rocks, and I could not look away. I had wanted this. I had dreamed of this moment, the instant when the man who had murdered me would finally face justice. But now that it had come, I felt nothing but a vast, yawning emptiness. Young mistress. Chuanhua's voice was small, trembling. She had not moved from where she stood, her hands pressed to her mouth, her eyes fixed on the body. Is he truly dead? I forced myself to nod. Yes, he is gone. She swayed, and I caught her arm, studying her. She had been so brave, so steadfast, following me through every trial without complaint. But she was still young, still innocent in so many ways. She had never watched a man die before. Wei Guang cleaned his sword on a scrap of cloth, his movements methodical and unhurried. He did not look at the body. He had seen too many deaths to be moved by one more. The retainers either dead or fled, he said, his voice flat. The ones who survived will spread word of what happened here. We have perhaps a day, maybe 2, before Zhou Yan's allies start asking questions. Lady Xiang was kneeling by the body, her hands sea-urching through the folds of his robes with the desperate efficiency of a woman who had been trained to survive by any means necessary. She found a small leather pouch, identical to the one she ride, and opened it with trembling fingers. It is here, she breathed, and I saw the glint of jade in the pale morning light. The seal. It is real. I walked toward her, my legs heavy with exhaustion. The seal was small, no larger than my palm, red from a single piece of pale green jade. The symbols etched into its surface were ancient, worn smooth by centuries of use. I had seen it before, in the histories I had studied as a girl, but I had never imagined I would hold it in my hands. It is the imperial seal, I said. The emperor's own Ma'arke. How did Zhou Yan get his hands on it? Lady Xiang's face was pale, her eyes shadowed with grief and guilt. My father gave it to him. Before he died. He thought Zhou Yan was his ally, his friend. He thought the seal would be safe in his hands. But Zhou Yan used it to forge documents, to redirect funds, to build a network of corruption that reached into every corner of the empire. And now it is ours, Wei Guang said, and there was no triumph in his voice. Which means we are in more danger than we were before. The emperor will not rest until he has his seal back. And the people who helped Zhou Yan will do anything to make sure the truth never comes out. I looked at the seal in my hands. It was heavy, cold, a weight that seemed to press down on my soul. I had wanted to escape, to build a quiet life far from the intrigues of the capital. But the seal tied me to that life, bound me to a destiny I had never chosen. We cannot keep it, I said. We have to return it to the emperor. Lady Xiang Sta read at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Return it? Do you know what that would mean? They would kill us. All of us. The emperor's ministers would demand our heads, just to make sure the scandal never sees the light of day. Then we do not return it directly, I said. We use it as leverage. We find someone we can trust, someone who can help us negotiate a pardon. We use the seal to buy our freedom. Wei Guang shook his head. There is no one in the capital who can be trusted. The rot goes too deep. The emperor himself may be complicit, for all we know. If we bring the seal to anyone, they will either take it from us and silence us, or they will try to use it for their own purposes. Then what do you suggest? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. We cannot carry it forever. It will always be a target, of a reason for someone to hunt us down. Wei Guang was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his robe and pulled out a small piece of parchment, yellowed with age. He held it out to me, and I took it, my fingers brushing against the rough edges. Your grandmother gave me this, he said. Before she died. She told me that if I ever found myself in a situation where there was no way forward, I should read it and follow its instructions. I unfolded the parchment and read the words written in my grandmother's familiar hand. The script was small, precise, the letters formed with the CA of a woman who had spent a lifetime perfecting her art. My rest granddaughter, if you are rereading this, then you have found Wei Guang, and you have faced the trials that I knew would come. I am sorry that I could not be there to guide you, but I have done what I could from beyond the grave. There is a place in the eastern mountains, a village called Clearwater, where a woman named Mistress Lu lives. She was my closest friend, and she knows the truth about the seal. She can help you, but you must trust her completely. Go to her, and tell her that the phoenix has returned. She will know what to do. I love you, Lin Wei. I always have. And I believe in you, with all my heart. Your grandmother. TARS blurred my vision, and I blinked them back. My grandmother had known. She had known that I would face this moment, and she had prepared for it. She had been watching over me all along. We go to Clearwater, I said, folding the parchment and tucking it into my sleeve. We find Mistress Lu. And we trust her. Chuanhua stepped forward, her face still pale, but her voice steady. Young mistress, I do not understand. How did your grandmother know all of this? How did she plan for something that happened after her death? I do not know, I admitted. But I know that she was never just a grandmother. She was a woman of secrets, of connections, of power that I never understood until now. She was preparing me for this moment my entire life. We buried Zhou Yan's body beneath a cairn of stones, a small act of mercy that none of us felt, but all of us performed. His retainers' bodies were left where they had fallen, food for the scavengers. The mountain pass was still, silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. We rode east, leaving the pass behind us. The sun climbed higher, warming my shoulders, but I could not shake the chill that had settled in my bones. I had killed a man. I had watched him die. And I had felt nothing but relief. The days that followed were a blur of hard riding and restless nights. We kept to the back roads, avoiding the main highways where Zhou Yan's allies might be sea urching. Wei Guang led us through terrain I had never seen before, winding paths that hugged the mountains and crossed rivers that glittered like silver in the moonlight. Lady Xiang did not speak much during the journey. She kept to herself, her hand always resting on the pouch that held the seal, her eyes always scanning the horizon. I did not press her. We all had our own demons to wrestle. Chuanhua, however, grew more talkative as the days passed. She told me stories of her childhood, of her mother who had died when she was young, of her father who had sold her into service to pay off his debts. She told me about her dreams, the small hopes that had kept her going through the darkest days. She wanted to open a tea house, she said, a small place where travelers could rest and share their stories. I listened, and I made a silent promise to myself. When this was over, I would give her the tea house. I would give her everything she had ever wanted. She had netted 100 times over. We reached clear water on the evening of the 7th day. The village was nestled in a valley between two mountains, its houses clustered around a clear stream that gave it its name. It was peaceful, quiet, untouched by the chaos of the world beyond. Mistress Lu's house was at the edge of the village, a modest cottage surrounded by a den of medicinal herbs. The woman who opened the door was old, her face weathered by time, her eyes sharp and knowing. She looked at me, and a slow smile spread across her face. "Lin Wei," she said, "I have been expecting you. Your grandmother said you would come." I stepped inside, my heart pounding. The cottage was filled with the scent of drying herbs and wood smoke. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "How did you know?" I asked. "How did my grandmother know?" Mistress Lu gestured for us to sit. She poured tea, her movements slow and deliberate. "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman," she said. "She had the sight, the gift of seeing what was to come. She knew that Zhou Yan would destroy you, and she knew that you would find a way to survive. She spent the last years of her life building a network of people who could help you, people like me." "Then you know about the seal," Lady Xiang said, her voice sharp. "You know what we are relying." Mistress Lu nodded. "I know. And I know what you must do with it." She reached into a chest beside her chair and withdrew a bundle of cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a small box made of dark wood. The box was red with symbols that matched the ones on the seal. "This was given to me by your grandmother," she said, holding the box out to me. "She said that when the time came, I was to give it to you. She said you would know what to do." I took the box, my hands trembling. It was lighter than I expected, and when I opened it, I found a single sheet of parchment, folded neatly. My rest Lin Wei. If you are rereading this, then you have reached Mistress Lu, and you have the seal. Now you must make a choice. You can use the seal to buy your freedom, to negotiate a pardon, to start a new life. But if you do that, you will always be running. The seal will always be a shadow, a threat, a reason for someone to hunt you down. Or you can destroy it. You can break the seal and scatter the pieces, rendering it useless. No one will ever be able to use it again. The Empire will find another way to solve its problems, and you will be free. The choice is yours, my dar. I trust you to make the right one. All my love. Your grandmother. I read at the letter, my mind reeling. I had the power to destroy the seal, to end the threat once and for all. But that meant giving up any leverage I had, any chance to be a gain for my safety. Destroy it, Lady Xiang said, reading over my shoulder. Destroy it and be done with it. Are you sure? I asked, looking at her. This was your father's legacy. This was the only thing he gave you. My father gave me nothing but debts, Lady Xiang said, and her voice was bitter. He gave me to Zhou Yan, he gave me to the wolves. The seal is not my legacy. It is my prison. Destroy it, and I am free. Chunhua nodded, her face resolute. Wei Guang said nothing, but I could see the approval in his eyes. I looked at the jade seal in my hands. It was beautiful, valuable, a symbol of power that had corrupted everyone who had touched it. But it was also a weight, a burden I had never asked to carry. I walked to the fire and held the seal over the flames. Are you certain, Mistress Lu asked, her voice soft. I have never been more certain of anything, I said. This seal has brought nothing but death and destruction. It has ruined lives, destroyed families, corrupted the people who were supposed to protect the empire. It does not deserve to exist. I dropped the seal into the fire. The jade crackled, and a bright white flame shot up, consuming it. The symbols on its surface glowed, then faded, then crumbled to ash. I watched the fire burn, and I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. The seal was gone. And with it, the threat that had followed me for so long. I am free, I whispered. Chuanhua came to me, wrapping her arms around me. Lady Xiang bowed her head, tears streaming down her face. Wei Guang placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. You have done the right thing, he said. Your grandmother would be proud. I looked at the fire, at the ashes that were all that remained of the seal. I thought of Zhou Yan, of my previous life, of all the pain and betrayal I had endured. And I thought of the future, the bright, uncertain future that stretched out before me. Now what? Chunhua asked. I smiled, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the smile was genuine. Now we live, I said. We build something new. Something of our own. Mistress Lu opened her arms, and I embraced her. She smelled of herbs and wood smoke, of the earth and the sky. She was warmth and comfort, and the promise of a home I had been sea-urching for my entire life. You can stay here as long as you need, she said. The village is safe, and the people kind. You can rest here, and when you are ready, you can decide what comes next. Thank you, I said. Thank you for everything. She smiled. Thank your grandmother. She is the one who set all of this in motion. We spent the night in Mistress Lu's cottage, sleeping on mats by the fire. The warmth seeped into my bones, chasing away the cold that had been with me since the night of my rebirth. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birdsong and the smell of fresh bread. Chunhua was already awake, helping Mistress Lu prepare breakfast. Lady Xiang was sitting by the window, her eyes fixed on the mountains. The seal is gone, she said, as I sat down beside her. And I do not know what to do with myself. Neither do I admitted. But I think that is the point. We have been running for so long that we have forgotten how to stand still. It will take time to learn. Will you stay here? She asked. In clear water, I looked around the cottage, at the Jade, at the mountains that rose like sentinels around the valley. It was peaceful here, quiet, a world away from the chaos I had left behind. I do not think so, I said. I have been still for too long. I need to move, to see the world, to find out who I am when I am not running. Then take me with you, Lady Xiang said. I have no one else. I have nothing else. But I want to see who I become. I reached out and took her hand. Then we will go together. We will find our own path and we will walk it side by side. Chuanhua brought us bread and tea, and we ate in companionable silence. Wei Guang joined us, his face relaxed in a way I had not seen before. I have been watching over you for a long time, he said. And I think my watch is finally over. You are ready to stand on your own. Will you stay? I asked. He shook his head. I have my own journey to make. But I will always be a friend to you, Lin Wei. If you ever need me, I will find you. We left clear water the next morning, the three of us, me, Chunhua, and Lady Xiang. Wei Guang went south, toward the coast, and Mistress Lu waved from her Jade until we were out of sight. The road stretched out before us, long and winding and full of possibility. I did not know where it would lead, and for the first time in my life, I did not see Ari. I was alive, I was free, and I had people I loved by my side. That was enough. That was everything. We traveled for weeks, wandering through villages and towns, seeing the world I had never been allowed to explore. Chunhua found her tea house in a small town by the sea, a cozy place with a view of the water and a jade of fragrant flowers. I helped her set it up, using the last of the gold we had saved, and I watched her bloom into the woman she was always meant to be. Lady Xiang and I continued on together, traveling east. Road the great cities of the empire. We took work where we found it, trading our skills for food and shelter. We met people from all walks of life, and we listened to their stories. We were no longer fugitives. We were travelers, explorers, women who had found their own way in a world that had tried to break them. And then, one evening, as we sat by a campfire on the banks of a river, Lady Xiang turned to me with a smile. "I have decided," she said. "I am going to write a book. The story of my father, of Zhou Yan, of everything that happened. I want people to know the truth." "Are you sure?" I asked. "That will make enemies. Powerful enemies." "I know," she said. "But I do not see a re. The truth needs to be told. And I think the world is ready to hear it." I looked at her, this woman who had been so broken, so afraid, and I saw the strength in her eyes. She had been forged in the fires of adversity, and she had come out stronger. "Then I will help you," I said. "We will write it together." She laughed, a bright, joyful sound that echoed across the water. "And we will be famous. The women who brought down a conspiracy." I laughed too, and the sound felt like freedom. The sun set over the river, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. I watched it go, and I thought of my grandmother, of Wei Guang, of everyone who had helped me along the way. They had believed in me, and they had given me the strength to believe in myself. I was no longer the woman who had died in a mountain pass. I was no longer the frightened wife, the obedient daughter, the victim of a world that had tried to destroy me. I was Lin Wei. I was a survivor. And I was finally, truly, free. The river campfire had burned low, its embers casting a soft orange glow across the faces of my companions, when the horsemen came. I heard them before I saw them, the distant thunder of hooves, the jingle of bridles, the low murmur of voices see ride on the night wind. My hand went instinctively to the dagger at my belt, and I saw Lady Xiang do the same. "Riders," I said, keeping my voice low. "Coming fast." Chuanhua, who had been dozing against a tree, jolted awake, her eyes wide with fear. The peace we had found, the fragile sense of safety we had built over the weeks of wandering, evaporated in an instant. The past was never truly past. It was always there, waiting to catch up. We scrambled to our feet, kicking dirt over the fire. The hoofbeats grew louder, and I could see the torches now, a line of flickering lights cutting through the darkness. There were at least a dozen riders, maybe more. "Into the trees," I hissed. Quickly. We plunged into the forest, the branches slapping at our faces, the roots tangling around our feet. I could hear the riders reining in at our camp, hear the shouts of discovery as they found the dying fire and the scattered remnants of our meal. "There," a voice shouted. "They went this way." I grabbed Chuanhua's hand and pulled her deeper into the darkness. Lady Xiang was beside me, her breath coming in ragged gasps. We stumbled over rocks and fallen logs, our eyes straining to see in the pitch-black night. "They are regaining on us," Lady Xiang gasped. "We cannot outrun them." "Then we have to hide," I said. I looked around desperately, searching for anything that could shelter us. And then I saw it, a narrow crevice in the rock face, lie wide enough for a person to squeeze through. It was hidden, invisible to anyone who did not know it was there. "In there," I said, pushing Chunhua toward it. "Go." She scrambled into the crevice, and Lady Xiang followed. I squeezed in last, pressing my back against the cold stone, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain the riders would hear it. They passed within arm's reach of our hiding place, their torches casting wild shadows across the rocks. I held my breath, my hand clamped over my mouth, and I prayed to every god I had ever heard of. "Spread out," the leader shouted. "They cannot have gone far." The riders dispersed, their torches bobbing through the trees. I waited, counting the seconds, each one stretching into an eternity. And then, slowly, the sounds began to fade. The hoofbeats grew distant. The voices grew muffled. "They are gone," I whispered. "Not gone," Lady Xiang said, her voice shaking. "Just searching somewhere else. We need to move, now." We crawled out of the crevice, our limbs stiff and cold. The forest was silent, the only sound the rustle of leaves in the wind. But I knew better than to trust the silence. The riders were out there, waiting, hunting. "We need to find Wei Guang," I said. "He knows these lands better than anyone. He can help us." Chuanhua shook her head. Wei Guang went south. He could be days away by now. Then we go south, I said. We follow him. We walked through the night, keeping to the shadows, stopping at every sound. The moon rose and set, and the first gray light of dawn painted the sky as we emerged from the forest onto a winding road. I was exhausted, my legs heavy, my eyes burning with lack of sleep. But I could not stop. I would not stop. The road led to a small village, a cluster of houses around a dusty square. It was still early, and the villagers were just beginning to stir. We found a well and drank deeply, the cold water reviving me. We need horses, I said. And supplies. And information about who those riders were. Lady Xiang nodded. I will see what I can find. Wait here. She read into the village, her hood pulled low over her face. Chunhua and I sat by the well, our backs against the stone, and tried to catch our breath. Young mistress, Chunhua said, her voice a whisper. Who were they? Who is still hunting us? I do not know, I admitted. But they were not Zhou Yan's men. He is dead, and his retainers scattered. These were someone else. Someone who knows about the seal. But the seal is destroyed, Chunhua said. We burned it. There is nothing left. Someone may not know that, I said. Or they may not see The seal is gone, but the knowledge of what we did remains. There are people who will want to silence us, to make sure the truth never comes out. Chuanhua's face went pale. Then we can never stop running. We can stop, I said. When we find someone who can protect us. When we find a way to fight back. Lady Xiang returned an hour later, leading 2 sturdy horses and riding a bundle of supplies. Her face was grim. The riders were from the capital, she said. They are searching for a group of 3 women. The description matches us exactly. Who sent them? I asked. Someone high up. The innkeeper did not know the name, but he said they ride the seal of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. They are not going to stop until they find us. The Ministry of Internal Affairs. The very institution that should have been investigating the corruption Zhou Yan had been part of. They were not looking to bring justice. They were looking to bury the truth. Then we have 2 choices, I said. We can run south and try to find Wei Guang, hoping he can help us. Or we can go north, back to the capital, and try to expose whoever is behind this. Lady Xiang read at me. Go back to the capital, that is suicide. Maybe, I said. But we are out of options. The ministry has resources we cannot match. They will find us eventually, no matter where we run. The only way to stop them is to fight. Chuanhua gripped my hand. Then we fight. I am with you, young mistress. I looked at Lady Xiang. She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. And then she nodded. Then we go north, I said. We rode hard, pushing the horses to their limits. The roads were rough, the terrain unforgiving, but we did not stop. We passed through villages and towns, always looking over our shoulders, always listening for the sound of hoofbeats. On the 3rd day, we reached a crossroads. A signpost pointed north. Taoa rode the capital and south. Taoa rode the coast. I reined in my horse, my eyes fixed on the north road. And that was when I saw him. A man standing at the crossroads, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. He did not move, did not speak. He just stood there, waiting. Who is that? Chunhua whispered. I do not know, I said. But something about his posture, the way he held himself, was familiar. I nudged my horse forward, my hand on my dagger. The man pushed back his hat, and I saw his face. It was Wei Guang. You are supposed to be south, I said, my voice a mix of relief and suspicion. How did you find us? I have my ways, he said. And I have news. The ministry has doubled their efforts. They have informants everywhere. You were lucky to get this FAR. Then what do we do? I asked. Wei Guang looked at me, and his eyes were grave. There is one person in the capital who can help you. One person who is not corrupt, who has the power to stop the ministry. But she is dangerous, and she will not help you for free. Who is she? Princess Yuning, he said. The emperor's younger sister. She has been investigating the corruption in the ministry for years. She knows about Zhou Yan, about the seal, about everything. But she plays her cards close to her chest. If you want her help, you will have to EARN it. Then we will EARN it, I said. Take us to her. Wei Guang shook his head. I cannot. I have other matters to attend to. But I can tell you how to reach her. She frequents a tea house in the eastern quarter of the capital, called the Pavilion of the Hidden Orchid. Go there, and ask for a seat by the window overlooking the Jie Den. She will find you. Before I could respond, he turned and walked away. Disape ring into the trees. Just like that, Lady Xiang said, incredulous. We just go to a tea house and hope she shows up. I trust him, I said. He has never led us wrong before. We rode north, the capital looming in the distance like a giant sleeping beast. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. I had fled this city in shame, and now I was returning to face my enemies head-on. The capital was just as I remembered it, crowded, chaotic, filled with the energy of 1,000 different ambitions. We made our way to the eastern quarter, a maze of narrow streets and bustling markets. And there, tucked between a silk merchant and a bookshop, we found the Pavilion of the Hidden Orchid. The tea house was elegant, its walls adorned with paintings of flowers and birds. We took a seat by the window overlooking the Jie Den, and we waited. Hours passed. The sun climbed and began its descent. I was beginning to think that Wei Guang had been wrong, that Princess Yuning would not come. And then she did. She was younger than I had expected, perhaps 25, with a face that was both beautiful and unsettlingly sharp. She wore simple robes, but the fabric was of the finest quality, and her hair was adorned with a single jade pin. Lin Wei, she said, taking a seat across from me without waiting for an invitation. I have heard a great deal about you. Your Highness, I said, bowing my head. I am honored. Do not flatter me, she said. I know why you are here. You want my help to stop the ministry from hunting you. And you want to expose the corruption that Zhou Yan was part of. Yes, I said. Then I have a proposition for you, she said. I will protect you and your companions. I will see to it that the ministry stops its CRCH. But in return, you must do something for me. Name it. Princess Yuning leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with cold intensity. I want you to infiltrate the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I want you to find proof of their corruption, proof that goes all the way to the top. And I want you to bring it to me. I read at her. Infiltrate the ministry? That is impossible. They know what I look like. They know who I am. Which is exactly why you are perfect, she said. They will never expect you to come to them. And I can give you a disguise, a new identity, a way in. Chunhua gripped my hand, her face pale. Lady Xiang was ring at the princess, with a mixture of awe and suspicion. Yes, I asked. Why not use your own agents? Because my own agents are being watched, she said. The ministry has eyes everywhere. But you are unknown, unconnected. You are the perfect weapon. I thought about the offer. It was dangerous, reckless, insane. But it was also the only chance I had. I will do it, I said. On one condition. Name it. When this is over, I want to be free. Truly free. No more running, no more hiding. I want a life of my own choosing. Princess Yuning smiled. I would expect nothing less from a woman who survived what you have. You have my word. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small pouch. She placed it on the table and slid it mida. Inside you will find a new identity, a new name, and the documents you need to enter the ministry as a clerk. Study them tonight. Tomorrow, you will begin your new life. She rose, and with a final, piercing look, she read into the crowd. I opened the pouch and read at the documents inside. A new name. A new life. A chance to strike back at the people who had destroyed so much. Are you sure about this? Lady Xiang asked. I looked at her, at Chunhua, at the life we had built together. And I knew what I had to do. I have never been more sure of anything, I said. The documents in my hands felt heavier than they should have, the weight of a new name pressing down on my fingers like an anchor. I read through them by candlelight in the small room Princess Yuning had arranged for us, my eyes tracing the elegant calligraphy that had given me a new life. Lin Wei was gone. In her place stood Jiangsu, a clerk from the eastern provinces who had come to the capital seeking advancement. The details were meticulous: family history, education, references from a minor official who had been paid handsomely for his signature. I had never seen such thorough forgery. Chunhua sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, her face pale and drawn. She had not spoken since we left the tea house, and I knew she was afraid. Not of the danger we were about to face, but of losing me. She had lost everything once. She could not be to lose me again. You do not have to come, I said, setting the documents aside. You and Lady Xiang can stay here in safety. Princess Yuning has promised protection. Chunhua shook her head, her jaw set. I am not leaving you, young mistress. Where you go, I go. That has always been the way. I reached out and took her hand. I know. But this is different. This is not a journey we can run from. I am walking into the lion's den, and I cannot guarantee that I will walk out. Then I will walk in with you, she said, and there was no hesitation in her voice. If you die, I die. If you live, I live. That is the bargain we made a long time ago, whether you remember it or not. I remembered. I remembered watching her die in my previous life, her head rolling across the marbly floor, her eyes still blinking in surprise. I would not let that happen again. But I could not stop her from making her own choices. Then you come, I said. But you stay close to me, and you do what I say without question. The ministry is not a place for questions. Lady Xiang had been silent, her eyes fixed on the window. Now she turned to face me, and I saw the resolve in her face. I will stay here, she said. I am not a fighter, and I would only slow you down. But I will be waiting when you return. And I will have the tea ready. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. She was not abandoning us. She was holding the door open for our return. The morning came too quickly. I dressed in the plain robes of a clerk, my hair pinned up in the simple style of a woman who had no time for vanity. I looked at myself in the small mirror that hung on the wall, and I did not recognize the woman staring back at me. Jiangsu had no history, no baggage, no dead husband. Jiangsu was a clean slate. The Ministry of Internal Affairs occupied a sprawling complex in the center of the capital, its walls high and forbidding, its gates guarded by soldiers in gleaming armor. I approached with my head held high, my papers clutched in my hand. Chunhua followed a few steps behind, her own papers identifying her as my personal attendant. The guard at the gate examined my documents with the bored efficiency of a man who had seen 1,000 such clerks pass through. He grunted, stamped the papers, and waved me through. The ministry was a labyrinth of corridors and courtiers, filled with the quiet rustle of official business. I was assigned to a small office in the eastern wing, a cramped room with a desk and a window that looked out onto a blank wall. My supervisor was a man named Chin, a thin, nervous creature with rooting eyes and a habit of chewing his fingernails. You will be processing records, he said, gesturing to a stack of papers on my desk. Births, deaths, marriages, property transfers. File them in the correct cabinets. Do not make mistakes. I nodded, and he left me to my work. The papers were tedious, mind-numbingly dull, but I forced myself to focus. A clerk who made mistakes attracted attention, and attention was the last thing I needed. The days blurred together. I filed records, took notes, and listened. The ministry was a hive of whispers, and I learned to parse the subtle language of bureaucracy. A raised eyebrow, a muttered aside, a document that was slipped into a different file than the one it belonged to. These were the clues I was looking for. On the 4th day, I found it. A document that had been misfiled, tucked into a folder marked Completed Investigations. It was a report on the death of the Minister of Revenue, Lady Xiang's father. The official conclusion was suicide, but the details did not match. The position of the body, the angle of the wound, the missing seal that should have been with his belongings. The report had been altered. Someone had covered up his murder. I made a copy, my hand steady despite the pounding of my heart. I tucked the copy into my sleeve and returned the original to its folder. No one had seen me. No one would know. The next week, I found more. Ledgers that showed payments to officials who had not performed any service. Correspondence between Zhou Yan and a minister I did not recognize. Lists of names, dates, and amounts that painted a picture of corruption so vast it made my blood run cold. I was building a case. A case that would bring down the ministry and everyone in it. But I was also running out of time. The ministry was getting suspicious. I had noticed the Gua RDS watching me more closely, the way my supervisor's eyes lingered on my face a moment too long. You need to leave, Chanhua whispered one evening as we returned to our Qua routers. They are sta rooting to ask questions. Not yet, I said. I need one more piece. The name of the person at the top. Whoever it is, they are not worth dying for, she said, her voice thick with fear. I looked at her, and I saw the terror in her eyes. She had been so brave, so steadfast, but even she had her limits. I will be ca refill, I said. I promise. The next morning, I made my move. I had heard whispers of a meeting in the main hall, a gathering of the ministry's top officials. I slipped away from my desk and made my way through the corridors, staying to the shadows. The hall was grand, its walls adorned with paintings of emperors and heroes. A dozen men sat around a long table, their faces stern, their voices low. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. The man at the head of the table was Minister Wei, the head of the ministry. He was a tall, imposing figure with a sharp bard and colder eyes. His voice carried a weight of authority that silenced all others. The situation is under control, he was saying. The women have been dealt with. The seal is gone. There is no evidence left. Are you certain? Another voice asked. There are rumors that the princess is involved. If she decides to investigate, she will not, Minister Wei said. I have taken care of it. She is under surveillance. If she makes a move, she will be silenced. My blood froze. Princess Yuning. They knew she was helping us. They were watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. I had to warn her. I had to get out of the ministry and find a way to reach her before it was too late. I turned to leave, and I heard a sharp intake of breath. I spun around, and there he was, Chin, my supervisor, his eyes wide with shock. Jiangsu, he said, his voice trembling. What are you doing here? He had seen me. He had heard me. And he knew I was not supposed to be here. I was looking for a file, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I got lost. He did not believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He opened his mouth to call out, and I did the only thing I could. I lunged forward, my hand clamping over his mouth. He struggled, and I felt the cold metal of my dagger against his throat. You will not say a word, I hissed. Do you understand? He nodded, his eyes wide with fear. I released him, and he stumbled back, his hands raised in surrender. Go home, I said. Forget what you saw. If you tell anyone, I will come back for you. He fled, and I stood in the corridor, my heart pounding. I had just made a terrible mistake. He would not stay silent. He would go to Minister Wei, and Minister Wei would come for me. I ran. I grabbed Chanhua from our Qua routers, and we fled through the back corridors, avoiding the main halls where the Gua RDS were stationed. We burst through a service entrance into a narrow alley, and we ran. The streets of the capital were a blur of color and noise. We pushed through crowds, ducked through markets, took turns that led us deeper into the labyrinth of the city. I did not know where I was going. I only knew that I had to find Princess Yuning. We reached the tea house, and I burst through the door. The owner looked up, sta riled, and I grabbed his arm. Princess Yuning, I gasped. I need to see her. It is urgent. She is not here, he said, pulling away. She has not been here for days. Days. She had been under surveillance. They had already gotten to her. What do we do now? Chanhua asked. Her voice Relia whispered. I looked around the tea house, at the elegant patrons sipping their tea, at the peaceful den beyond the windows. It was a world of calm, a world that had no place for the chaos I had brought with me. Oh, we find her, I said. We find her and we get her out. It was a fool's errand. I knew that. But I had come too far to give up now. We searched the capital for 3 days. We asked questions, followed rumors, chased shadows. And finally, on the evening of the 3rd day, we found her. She was being held in a private residence on the outskirts of the city, a beautiful house surrounded by high walls. The Gua RDS were numerous, but they were not expecting an attack. Not from 2 women. I waited until nightfall, and then I made my move. I scaled the wall, my fingers finding holes in the ancient stone. I dropped into the den, landing silently on the soft arth, Chunhua followed, her movements quiet and sure. The house was dark, save for a single window on the upper floor. I crept toward it, my dagger in my hand. I found a door, unlocked, and slipped inside. Princess Yuning was sitting in a chair by the window, her face pale, her hands bound. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment, I saw relief in her eyes. You found me, she said. I found you, I said. Now let us get you out of here. I cut her bonds, and she stood, her legs unsteady. Chunhua helped her, and together, we made our way to the door. But we were not fast enough. The door swung open, and Minister Wei stood there, flanked by 4 guards. His eyes gleamed with cold triumph. Jiangsu, he said. Or should I say Lin Wei. You have made a grave mistake. Let her go, I said, stepping in front of Princess Yuning. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this, Minister Wei said. She has been interfering in ministry business for years. She is a threat to the empire, and she must be eliminated. I felt Princess Yuning's hand on my shoulder. Let him take me, she said, her voice calm. I knew the risks when I sta root this. I was willing to pay the price. No, I said. You are not paying any price. We are leaving, all of us. Minister Wei laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. You think you can fight your way out? You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender, and I may let your companions live. I looked at Chunhua, at Princess Yuning. I thought about my grandmother's letter, about the promise I had made to myself. I was not going to let anyone else die for me. I surrender, I said. Just let them go. Minister Wei's smile widened. Seize them all, he said. The guards moved 4 and I lunged. I drove my dagger into the chest of the nearest guard, pulling it free and spinning to face the next. I heard Chunhua scream, heard the clash of steel behind me. I did not stop. I could not stop. We fought, the 4 of us, a desperate battle in the narrow hallway. Minister Wei was shouting, calling for more guards. I could hear them coming, the thunder of footsteps on the stairs. And then I heard another sound, the crash of the front door being broken down. Soldiers poured into the house, their armor gleaming in the torchlight. At their head was a woman I did not recognize, her face hardy and determined. Minister Wei, she said, her voice echoing through the house. You are under arrest for conspiracy against the throne. The minister's face went white. Who are you? He demanded. I am General Zhao, commander of the Imperial Guard, she said. And I have enough evidence to hang you 100 times over. Minister Wei tried to run, but the guards were on him in an instant. They subdued him, bound his hands, and dragged him away. I sagged against the wall, my legs giving way beneath me. Chunhua was at my side, her hands checking for wounds. I am fine, I said, though I was not. I was exhausted, battered, but alive. Princess Yuning was looking at me, her eyes bright with something that might have been admiration. You did it, she said. You brought him down. We did it, I said. All of us. General Zhao approached, her face unreadable. The emperor has been informed of the minister's crimes, she said. He has ordered that all prisoners be released and that the ministry be purged of corruption. You are free. Free. The word hung in the air, beautiful and terrifying. I had been free before in a mountain pass, in a village by the sea. But this was different. This was not a freedom born of running. This was a freedom born of fighting. We left the house, walking out into the seal night air. The stars were out, 1,000 points of light scattered across the sky. I looked at them, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time, hope. The next weeks were a blur of hearings, testimonies, and investigations. I was called before the emperor himself, a young man with tired eyes and a burdened soul. He listened to my story, and when I was finished, he was silent for a long moment. You have done the empire a great service, he said at last. I am grateful. Name your Reva RD, and it shall be yours. I thought about the tea house, about the farm by the sea, about the life I had dreamed of. But I had learned something during my journey. I had learned that the life I wanted was not a place. It was a state of being. It was the ability to choose, to act, to be the author of my own story. I want nothing, I said. I have everything I need. I have my freedom and I have my friends. That is enough. The emperor smiled, a genuine smile that softened his tired face. You are a Rema or cable woman, Lin Wei. The empire needs more like you. I bowed and left the throne room. My heart light. Chuanhua was waiting for me outside, her face alight with joy. Young mistress, you did it. We are free. We are free, I said. And we are going to live our lives the way we choose. Lady Xiang was waiting at the tea house, and she had made good on her promise. The tea was warm, the air was filled with the scent of jasmine, and the windows looked out onto a den of fragrant flowers. I sat down and took a sip, and I felt the last of the tension drain from my shoulders. What happens now? Lady Xiang asked. I looked at her, at Chunhua, at the future that stretched out before us. It was uncertain, unknown, full of challenges I could not predict. But I was not afraid. Now we live, I said. Now we finally, truly live.